So, first of all, can you introduce yourself for the audience?
So my name is Devin Young. I'm currently the assistant strength and conditioning coach here at the University of Pittsburgh. I got here, oh God, I'm either going on week 7 or week 8. I honestly can't remember, but it was early September. Got offered the job. Previously was at a small Division III institute. I was the director of strength and conditioning there, oversaw 24 teams, one assistant, did that for a year. Prior to that, was at North Carolina A&T as my full-time job, and then since then bounced around from graduate assistantships, GAs, at graduate assistantships are GAs, internships, and kind of did the normal climb in the ranks as a strength and conditioning coach here in the States.
Cool, man. Cool. So, I know you have a podcast, right?
Yep.
So, why start the podcast at the beginning?
So the idea came to me. I was a graduate assistant at St. Francis. So that was, we'll call it 2017. I can't remember if it was late 16, 17. Was driving into work and was listening to a lot of people's podcasts. DeMayo's Central Virginia Sports Performance, Pacey. I was listening to all these podcasts and I was getting a whole lot of information. And I know you coach, like there's times when I leave the weight room, I don't want to listen to music. I've listened to music all day. Last thing I want to do is listen to more music. So podcasts were a good alternative versus just sitting in the car by myself. And I would get so excited, like a new guest would come on someone's podcast. I'd be like, oh yeah, let me go listen to so and so. And it was the same story I heard on the previous two podcasts. Not saying the information was bad, it just was this regurgitated information of the same test they're doing or the same programming style or whatever the case might be. And it was just always the same. And I know not growing up, like coming up through the ranks, like we would have all these conversations at conference, whether it was the NSCA, CSCCA, you'd meet up with coaches and we'd always get together at the bars or whatever. And it was the same thing. Why do I have a master's degree? I've done 3 unpaid internships and my first job starting out is 25,000. Like, I understand paying your dues and doing stuff, but like I felt like there was no podcast talking about the issues that every strength and conditioning coach either has faced, or still is facing in this like open format. So I wanted to be able to talk to coaches and how do you get admin to see our value? Some coaches I feel at schools do an amazing job of getting ADs involved. They've got a lot of support. The program has grown a bunch. Like how? Explain that to me. Um, how do they get sports coaches involved? I've been in places where some sports coaches want nothing to do with the weight room, and I've got some that have been fully hands on. And it's as a young coach, if you've never had that before, having a track coach wanting to be involved in the actual X's and O's, that can feel like, well, do you not trust me? Like, am I not good enough? It just can raise a lot of concerns, especially if you're a young coach. So that was really my thing. Like, I wanted to be able to have these real conversations that I know we all have in private and publicly have them so that the next generation can come up. So maybe they learn a little bit from me or from another coach that puts them 2 steps in front of where I was or where they were. And for me, I just thought it was like my way as a young coach to give back. Like I said, I was a GA when I thought of the idea. It was the first year in my assistantship at A&T when I started the podcast and just ran with it and went with there. The format has changed. I started out with doing like a question for the month. So it'd be like how to get admin to see value. And I would ask 4 different coaches. So you got 4 different perspectives of how different people are doing that at different universities. And that just came between, as you know, doing a podcast, you ask so and so to be on. Well, they can't come on until next week. Then you got another person who can do it today and another person that can do it tomorrow. And then you're like, well, I need you for this question and I need you. So it just became more of a long win. I sent out a big list of, hey, these are topics I want to talk about. Let me know if anything interests in you. Let's get on a call. And I try to keep it as organic as we can. Like sometimes they're very, this is what we do. And sometimes they're just like Joe Rogan rants where it's just, we're talking for an hour.
That's pretty cool, man. So, uh, I'm in Taiwan, but
Mm-hmm.
uh, I'm trying to apply for a master degree in the state. But anyway, so in the state and for yourself and for all those coaches you've been talked to, how was the industry looking like in the state? I mean, like what you just mentioned, like people need to graduate from need to get a master's degree or need to get a
Mhm.
PhD, and they need to have like all those kind of certification to get a job. So what's it's like for a like new coach to get a decent job?
I say this to all my interns when I was previously at my old school where I was the director and really oversaw our whole internship program. It's not what you know, it's who you know. Your network is going to do more for you than any certificate, any college course you take. It's who you know. And how you get to know people is hey, you're doing a podcast. I've seen your library. You've talked to an extensive amount of coaches, right? So now you have people in that network who at least know your name and know who you are. Then it's once you do get opportunities as an intern, as a graduate assistant, like I'm a firm believer cream rises to the top. Like if you're good at what you do, people are going to notice, wow, Eric, you are an amazing coach. I'm going to go to bat for you with my buddy at LSU. Hey, I got a kid. I know you got a spot opening. Like he's the dude. Then you go to LSU and then you kill it at LSU. And it's really just, I think, taking advantage of every opportunity you get, especially those unpaid internships. No one's going to turn away free help. I think it's awful that some people go through 3, 4 unpaid internships. They're bartending, they're doing something on the side just to live while they're pursuing this dream. At the same time, I don't have an answer of how to make it better besides directors, upper people going to admin saying we need money for these internship roles. And again, there's probably people smarter than me that have been in the industry way longer than me that have tried, failed. Some people have tried and done really well at it. So I think just really taking the opportunities you get and running with them and building that network.
Yeah, cool. So, uh, so for yourself and being a like a strength coach,
Mm-hmm.
being a strength coach is like very very busy. The schedule is like very hectic. So how to like balance the life you want and also to be able to like enjoy the work?
That is a great question, and I feel like I'm still searching for that answer. But back at my previous institution, there was 24 teams, and there was me and assistant. So my day was literally first team was at 6 a.m. My last team was at 6 p.m. And I think Monday, Wednesday, we had maybe a 2 hour gap where we didn't have teams. But also now being in that director role, I was in meetings. I was talking to admin. I was talking to sports coaches. So I really didn't have much of a life. I did have weekends off, which was nice. So then me and my wife could do things. Currently, one of the big reasons I took the job here at Pittsburgh was it's only 2 teams. The staff is a lot bigger. The weight room is much bigger than what I had before. So now it allows me to really focus on 2 teams, training wise, individualize a little bit, but also now my day is technically done on the floor at 1, and then there's a 2 hour break between my team. So I have time to read, program, go to practices, and then also, hey, my day is done at 1. I don't have anything extra to do. There's no projects going on. I can go home and hang out with my dogs. I can do something with my wife. We also now live in a city where there's access to things. I think finding a good work life balance starts with either working for, or if you are the boss, being someone that you create an environment that prioritizes a work life balance, right? In our profession, it'll never be 50-50. It'll never be 30% work, the rest of the percentage, because I'm bad at math in my head, work life balance, right? There's always going to be a give and take. I do softball and track right now. So my fall is pretty easy. Once springtime comes, teams are traveling. They're going to want me to travel with them. I might be gone Thursday through Sunday with softball. And I'm not really going to have much of a life if we're flying down to Miami on a Thursday and not coming back to Sunday. So I think it's prioritizing times. And I think also as a coach and as a younger coach, for the ones who are coming up, like setting your standards, setting your expectations, setting this is what I will do, this is what I will not do. Like as much as we want to say yes because we want to be there for the kids, yeah, you missed a session, come in this day where it's maybe my off day or whatever, because you want to do right by the kid, right? You want to make sure they succeed. But I think being able to say no in our profession is hard, and more coaches need to be able to be like, no, I'm not doing that. It's not because you don't want to or you're super selfish, but like you've heard this phrase probably, you can't pour from an empty glass. If I'm always giving, going to practices, doing extra sessions, doing this, I never have a chance to recharge. And I think that's when burnout happens, is when you're constantly over delivering and not being able to recharge yourself. I feel like that was a rant, and I don't know if I went off topic or not for you.
No worries, man. I love that. So, why do you want to be a strength coach at the beginning?
So my sport was ice hockey. That's what I played from the time I was in kindergarten. I played something called juniors, which is basically like a gap year between graduating high school and going to college. Doesn't affect your eligibility at all. So I came into school later. But I went to a private sports performance place one of the summers before going into college. And that was the first time I really was in the presence of a strength and conditioning coach, not just going to a Planet Fitness and benching curls and then eating free pizza. Like I had like a structured workout, and I loved it. Like I was always in hockey, like we called them grinders, right? Like you were on the third line, go out, hit someone, play hard defense, get back on here, let the more skilled players go score. So I've always been more of a hard work person, and always just, I love the weight room. I loved trying to get better, and probably like more coaches say it than not, I wasn't a good enough athlete to make money doing what I did. So I turned to strength and conditioning. I grew up with a family. My mom is a special ed teacher and my dad is a truck driver. So not bad professions, don't get me wrong. Like we had a great life, but like always was told, like, do what you love and you never work a day in your life. And I can truly say I've worked long hours. I've worked better hours. I love my current schedule right now here, but I've never worked a day in my life, even when I wasn't making any money as an intern and you were just trying to prove yourself. So you'd be the first one in. I'm going to make sure I'm the last one I leave to show how dedicated I am. I've never worked a day in my life. But yeah, it was something that I felt passionate about. I think being a strength coach, because my other option in college was I was looking to be a teacher like my mom was. And I think either way I went, I still teach. I just happen to use barbells, plates, conditioning. It's the same thing. We're teaching lessons, we're teaching hard work, we're teaching all the cliches you hear about strength and conditioning. And that's my favorite part, is like working with the interns, or we start a new phase. And I'm a coach where it's not just, hey, here's your sheet, here's the demos, here's how we're going to progress and regress exercises. Like I like explaining the why. This is why we're going from the past till now. This is how it's going to help you come February in your softball season. So I think it's just my form of teaching. And again, I get to wear t-shirts and sweatpants all day too. So that doesn't hurt either for the profession.
So, your podcast is Mastermind Strength and Conditioning, right?
Yep.
So before you start the podcast, like before we start the podcast, we always listen to different podcasts, like what you just mentioned, like Easy Performance, like Just Fly. But after you start your own podcast, what do you think, like the different, or I mean, what does it change, like when it comes to like listen to others podcasts or like creating your own content?
I think when I listen to other people's content, it's not so much say like content. I'm not looking at like the X's and O's, like what's Pacey asking? What are those questions? I'm more like, ooh, that's kind of choppy. Like, ooh, you're clipping a little bit. Like I learned, I want to say audio technician, but I could just be making up words and all. But basically the science of creating audio. Like you understand like how to edit, how to chop things together, how to blend things together. I think it's also funny, like people will do a podcast, we're talking, and then when you go to edit this, maybe halfway through, you put in an advertisement or you say, hey, by the way, I'm dropping an ebook, and you hear like the volume switch, or it goes from being echoey to more clear, because maybe when you're doing that little mid podcast commercial, you're doing it in a different space. Maybe you're using a microphone. So like hearing different things like that, my wife will probably kill me for saying this because she's not a huge fan, but like I'm a big Joe Rogan fan, and not for the sense of the people he has on the show, blah blah blah. Just the fact that it always seems like such an organic conversation. It's just two people talking. If you look and probably listen to early podcast I did, it was very much like, who are you? What do you think the industry should, like? It was very like question answer versus trying to have more of just this two guys, a guy and a girl, whatever it is, just having a conversation. So I think that's kind of really the ones I try to listen to. And I also think like, who do I like listening to? Like I like comedy podcasts. Like I want to be driving and laughing. So like for Kreischer and Tom Segura's podcast, like there's always on rotation for me because it makes me laugh. And again, it's a conversation. I think some of the ones that I've kind of fallen off of are more so just the question answer type. And I haven't done my podcast in a while. So like I started it, did it for a while, ran hard on it. COVID happened. I did a couple more episodes. Then when we got back from COVID at the school I was at, the whole staff left. I got named interim director. It was me, one assistant for a D1 school, and it was like 10 kids could only be in the room at the time. They had to be separate. Like it was a nightmare. So just the work-life balance changed. I moved, finally got to move with my wife. Then I changed jobs again. Now I'm at Pitt, and it just always like, it's like anything else. You start eating ice cream every night. Next thing you know, you're 300 pounds. You're like, oh, what's happened? It's like, oh, you've had ice cream for the last year in a row. So it just, I stopped doing it. And all of a sudden, days turned to weeks, turned to months, turned to a year. Then I was like, man, I haven't put an episode up in a year. But the cool thing is, like, I still get downloads every day. People still listen to it. So it's kind of one of those cool things that kind of forever lives on. And I could always hop back into it or not.
Cool, man. So are you planning to like start an episode recently?
I've reached out to a couple coaches through emails and I've never heard back from them. And I'm not sure if maybe emails went to spam. I'll be honest, I'll be completely transparent with you. I kind of had like a template of an email and I would change out the person's name and different things. And I'm starting to think that kind of feel real spammy versus kind of like you type out an organic email like you hit me in the DMs, like a little bit more organic versus like this like super structured email that I thought looked professional. I don't know if this really feels, I don't know if I want to click on this link because you never know. Click on something, next thing you know, you got spyware, and next thing you know, my $10 in my bank account's gone. So trying to find different ways that I can reach out to coaches that, again, is more organic. I think one thing I didn't do early on was give reasons why I wanted to talk to them. It just kind of felt like I was throwing a net out and hoping a fish got in versus like, hey, I really want to talk to Coach X. Here's why I want to talk to you. Hey, you tweeted this. I would love to dive in on that tweet, right? Tweet's only what, 100 and some words. Like, let's have a conversation of why you feel this way. I think that's kind of where my mindset is moving forward. Again, I just moved up here. I'm staying in a long-term Airbnb. So once my wife moves up here, we're in the process of buying a house. Hopefully I can set up my studio again and kind of dive back into it. Because I don't know about you. I love doing it. I got to talk to so many coaches. I got to build networks. Like, I don't know if I didn't interview Coach Mock when she was at Mississippi State, would I be sitting here now at Pitt as her being the director? Because it was just maybe that small little connection when my resume comes across the desk. Like, oh, I've talked to him before. Hey, give him a call. Oh, you liked him on the phone call? And then it just was a trickle down of like, killed the phone interview, killed the Zoom interview, did a great job on campus. Would that have been even a case if we didn't have that conversation? Oh my God, that might have been 2 years ago when me and Coach Mock interviewed, when I interviewed her for the podcast.
Oh, that's cool. I mean, I started the podcast because COVID happened. And we couldn't be able to like attend like any kind of like education event, like probably like CSS, that kind of stuff. We couldn't go to any of those event. So I was figuring how to learn new things for in the industry, like let's say like anything like velocity based training or like anything else. But so I remember like listening to like Pacey and like Joel Smith, and they listen to what they've been talking to like different coaches. I just thought that these are the conversation I did with other coaches just privately. And like that kind of like give me a thought that I probably should like record these like conversation, and it might be helpful for other coaches like what those podcasts been helpful to me. So I just
Mm-hmm.
started to uh like 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 what I just did. Like I got a message, and at the
Mm-hmm.
beginning it was uh like introducing what who I am, and I want and I have a podcast I want to talk to, and
Mm-hmm.
through a lot of message I didn't get response. And I mean, there's coaches that they respond back, and I think uh it was kind of the same like what you just mentioned. Like some of the coaches they didn't respond probably because I didn't like I didn't give I didn't let them know why I want to talk to them. I just
Mm-hmm.
sent out a message and didn't hear back.
Yeah,
But
and the
anyway,
cool thing
yeah,
is like you learn from it, right? Like it
yeah,
didn't ruin you, it didn't stop you from doing your
yeah,
podcast. Like I'm sure if you reach back to some of those coaches now, hey, they'll be on, they'll answer you.
yeah,
I think that's the cool thing about it. And again, for you doing it during the pandemic and as a way to educate yourself, I never even thought of that. I mean, my staff was always trying to do staff calls with other coaches and all that, but being as an individual, like that pursuit of knowledge, man, that's awesome. And now who knows what that little idea, what this could blossom into.
yeah. And like for now, I mean, it's like 100 something episodes right now.
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest, I learned so much. I mean, I have like CSS. I've been coaching like national team athletes in Taiwan, but
Mm-hmm.
and read a lot of like books and papers. But to be honest, I think talking to coaches, talking to like different coaches, and just like try to learn that helps me a lot. I mean, I really learn a lot from those conversations. And I also been friends with some of the coaches. That's
Yeah,
like
man, building that network, which is
yeah.
awesome. What's the biggest thing that changed from episode one to episode your most recent upload?
Um, I think at the beginning I was like trying to like be really like rigid to all those questions. I really try to find those answers for like
Mm-hmm.
strength and conditioning. But for now, uh I don't just want to like stick with like strength and conditioning. I want like uh talk about the industry and like really know about the person and like probably their background and why they want to do their job and uh how to help how they help athletes and how the athletes like how they bond with the athletes and how it can help them grow as a person.
Dude, the bonding with athletes, I think, is the secret, right? Like coaches are always looking for the secret. What's the best program? What's the best exercises? Building relationships with your athletes and building that trust. If I had to like say like that's the secret, that's the one right there. I've seen it enough through my career that I've done triphasic blocks. I've done omni contraction phases. I've done 1 by 20. I've done everything everyone tells you to do. You know what? It all works to some extent. But how much do those athletes believe in you and buy into you makes all the difference in the world. Our football team at the D3 I was at, we had a decent weight room for a D3 school. Like we had good space, we had good equipment, but we had no nutrition. We had lack of resources. They technically don't have to train in the off season at D3. They can, it's optional technically. Man, those kids bought into what me and my assistant were doing and went fully into it. And dude, they're having a great season this year. I don't know what their injuries are like and all that, but I've had a couple messages from guys like, "Hey, man, like had the game of my life. Thank you for everything you did." Man, I just got there at 6 a.m., cheered you on, cared about you, and made sure you weren't doing like your hang cleans didn't look like you were going to blow out your C5 of your back. So it's just all about caring about the kids, man. It's the really truly the secret.
Yeah. So, here's the next question for you is how did like these podcasts help you as a person or as a coach? How did it help you?
I think it taught me how to communicate a little bit better because again, you're talking through people, you're talking through a screen, right? It's not a one-on-one conversation, so you have to learn how to communicate a little bit better. That's different than one-on-one, but also how to ask questions, how to probe, how to really get to the root of things, which has helped me with coaches that say, hey, I want to do this. In my head, I'm like, all right, we ain't doing that. Okay, coach, why do you want to do this? What are you trying to get out of them? Have you ever thought of this? And it just allows you to ask questions to get to the root. Like, oh, you really just want them to be powerful. What if we did these things instead? But really just being a better communicator, like talking to people, being able to ask questions, and also being able to listen. Because, like I said, I like to have more of a dialect. So not only are we speaking, you're asking me a question, but when you talk, I'm trying to truly listen and be like, wait, you said this. Let's run back and like I really want to dive into that. So I think that, and also like you said, just listening to different coaches, how they do things, how they implement things. And like I was told once by someone I went on a site visit with, he said, if you ain't stealing, you ain't trying in this industry. So as much information and stuff as I can grab from someone else, I'm going to try to do it the best I can. Like previous schools I was at, like we didn't have any technology. So figured out ways to make Google questionnaires and then bring some kind of sports science in. Like my previous school, we had 2 VBTs. I didn't really do a lot with it, but my assistant, he'd throw it under the rack. His baseball guy would clean, be like, all right, 3-5, write that down, and then run it to another rack. And he'd be all over the room running around with these 2 VBT devices as they were in between sets. But like we made it work. And like the same thing, he worked under Zach. Oh God, I always butcher his last name. Dakin at TCU.
Oh, Zach.
He worked under him as an intern and got big into VBT. He's like, oh, it's easier when you have one at every rack. I was like, hey man, but you're doing it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Is there like a favorite episode for you for your own
Favorite
podcast?
episode. Oh, favorite episode. Favorite. I mean, I gotta say Coach Mock, but she also just hired me, so I'm gonna give her a shout out. Coach Stephanie Mock's episode's always a good one. Um, Favorite episode. Shannon Jackson. She's now the women's basketball strength coach at Georgia Tech. At the time when we spoke, she was the assistant at Jackson State, and I think she moved all the way up the ranks to a director. That was a cool conversation, but nothing else. She's a very awesome person. Still to this day, I'll hit her with a text or we'll see each other at conference, and she's just an awesome person that's kind of built this really cool network between me and her. My favorite episode actually happened, and it's never aired because his audio is gone. So when I try to upload it, it's just me, and there's no audio for him. But it's a buddy of mine. We trained together in college. He's now a physical therapist. He's not even a strength coach in Connecticut, I think. But again, we hadn't spoken in. I graduated in 16, and we did it during the lockdown, so it might have been 2021. So it was just real cool of like we haven't spoken in a while, but we're still cracking the same jokes. Like we're bringing up old times. He introduced me to this one song. It's a Russian techno song. We were training at a CrossFit gym, and we're like, all right, how long can we play this before we got sick of it? Because I think the YouTube video runs for like 12 hours. It's just the same song on repeat. Crazy techno Russian. I've played it at every university I've been to as like either a joke or a gag or like, all right, you guys don't want to train hard today. We're going to listen to this. And everywhere I've been, the kids just love it. It turns into like a cult favorite everywhere I've been. So it was just, again, that was probably my favorite conversation. But again, it was just me and one of my long-term friends I didn't talk to in a while. I wish I could figure out what's wrong with the audio to get it to actually like be me and him versus just him. But that was a fun episode.
Cool, man. Send me the song, okay? Send me a song later.
I'll send it to you. I'll DM it to you. It's actually I have a pure Russian techno Spotify playlist at the previous school I was at, my men's lacrosse team. Absolutely love. Like they asked for like, Devin, can you play the Russian techno? I was like, yeah, we'll put it on. Like, here we go.
Cool, man.
Yeah.
So, for me, I gotta say, I know. I mean, I don't know. Is it because I'm training track myself right now,
Mm-hmm.
or is it like, or personally, I'm a fan of him. But for me, the I probably love the episode I did with Coach Boo Schexnayder. That one, I probably love that one the most.
Track
But
OG right there.
yeah, but here's a story. I write an email to Coach Boo, and we did that episode. And to be honest, I listened to all the podcasts he did before we did that interview,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like confident that the question I asked is not, I mean, not too, those like concept was not too basic, but I don't think it's too hard for like new coaches to understand. And I posted on YouTube, I shared it on my Facebook, and there's a track coach in Taiwan just like write a poster on his Facebook wall, just like mocking me, uh what I'm sorry, what I ask is like stupid or like too basic. I mean, and he said that Coach Boo is like the probably the greatest track coach. And what I ask is like two basics. There's no need to listen to that episode. And I was like frustrated,
Mm-hmm.
literally frustrated. And so I asked uh like some of the coaches I interviewed before, and I asked them can they like listen to the podcast and give me some probably like advice how to like improve the the question I ask, or like how to like let how to like ask those like deeper knowledge from different coaches. And here's what I get. And these are the coaches like they work at like Exos or like some I think some of them work with some NBA players or like some
Mm-hmm.
pro team. And they responded like the question I asked was like great. And they said that I don't need to like I don't need to like uh focus on those like criticize me. And yeah, and I should like focus on what I want to create, and like
Mm-hmm.
try to learn each and every time. That's enough. And they even shared for me. I mean that's crazy. I love that. So I mean I
Yeah, man.
learned a
I think,
lot.
dude, like, did you get value?
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, did you get value out of what Coach Boo said to you?
Yeah, of course. I mean I learned a lot from that.
It's all that matters, man. It's all that matters.
But it's like from that one, I was trying to like be like not just do do the episode for me, but also do the episode for like other coaches. Trying to think that what like other coaches would want to know. And I don't know if this is like too sounds like cliche, but uh try to like give back, because I mean,
Mm-hmm.
being a coach, being a strength coach, like what I just mentioned, is like who he knows that matter the most, right? So we all there's like uh I mean, being able to like train national team athletes, I get a lot of help from the coaches, the other coaches I know. So I was like trying to be helpful for other coaches. So that's kind
Hey,
of like
I'm.
one. Yeah. So that's kind of like
I was
one
gonna
of.
say I feel like. Oh my bad. I was just gonna say real quick. I feel like if you have that question, there's another person who has that question, or there's a coach who's just starting out who doesn't know anything. That question that you asked is going to provide them so much value.
Appreciate it, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
So I know at the I'm gonna jump into the next topic. I know
Yeah.
at
Go
the
ahead.
previous like college, you have to like train like 22 or 24 teams, right? 24, right?
My previous school.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, we had 24 varsity sports.
yeah. So how to like do like try to like figure out those like different programs, like how to work with different sports and do the programming at the same time, since you have like so many teams, so many different sports, and the schedule is so hectic.
Yeah, it was tough, and I wish I could say that every team was on a different program, and we did a really good job because there was criticism. I heard that some people felt previously that like they were always on the same program or football had their own program and everyone was on their own thing. We really tried to instill three things like reverse engineer the sport. So, really taking time to go to practices, talk to the coaches. How do they structure their practices? How do they structure their game? What kind of team are they? Are they a fast team? Are they more of a technique team? Do they play the perimeter? Whatever the case may be, use that and then use the demands of the sport to try to give them the best program, best um, workouts, conditionings we could. And we also did something that we really tried to create a system. So we had our block zero program that didn't matter if you were a freshman or a transfer. If you were new in our program, you ran our block zero. And that could ran anywhere from 4, 6, 8, an entire semester, 15 weeks, depending on where you were. We actually had a football player this year, a freshman, who trains virtually with Travis Mash. I don't know if you've heard of Travis Mash.
No.
He's a weightlifting coach. He's done powerlifting. He has multiple like youth, junior, national champions. I don't know if he has any Olympians. He's part of Team USA, I think. Anyways, like he's a very well-to-do weightlifting coach. This kid back squatted 515 coming into our program, power clean 405, snatch 275. Like he was light years above what we had, say, in terms of just a weight room knowledge base. So how do we take him and keep progressing him? But he was also one of our freshmen in football. So he was in our football development program. So it's trying to find how to give him a little bit, but also not take away from there's only one of him. And I had 56 freshman football guys who some have never cleaned before. Some's back squats looked like they were made of jello. So it was all over the place. So we really tried to create a system of training, right? We had a very structured warm up of how we did things. We didn't have the same workout cards, we didn't have the same philosophies, but we married the two together so that we knew if I had to cover his team, I knew exactly what his card was. I knew exactly what his exercise selection was. We created the same nomenclature so that it wasn't like you call them Russian leans, I call them Nordic hamstrings. They're the same exercise, but they're two different names. So we made sure nomenclature across the board was the same. And then really just put a huge value on going to talk to your sports coaches, stepping into that office, having initial meetings with them, popping your head in, and really making sure on a weekly or monthly basis, like, are we getting the results we want on the court or field as we're getting into the weight room? And we kept it really general. Like I'm heavily influenced by Mike Boyle. I went to school in Massachusetts, so that's one of the first people you're exposed to up there is Mike Boyle. And there's times where I've been young and naive and I've thought, oh, we could do more. Or why doesn't he back squat his kids? And then come to realize that like he's got a really sound system to increase performance, reduce the likelihood of injury, and it's repeatable against a broad spectrum of athletes. So I've kind of taken his model and we kind of tweaked it a little bit to fit our needs, and we had great results with it.
Cool. I mean, uh, I personally like train like probably like I mean I can't really count it like, but a lot of like different types of athlete. And at the beginning, I was like, every like strength and conditioning is strength and conditioning. Like they need to get like stronger, they need to get faster. So everything is about the same at the beginning. But as time goes by, I mean, talk to like those coaches, like what you just mentioned, like what you just did. I mean, as a strength coach, we learn a lot from uh, like like let's say like basketball coach or like rugby coaches about like the needs for their sport. And I mean, even like training like different basketball team, different coaches have different philosophy for their own
Mm-hmm.
team, like different like pace of the game, different uh sense of like what they want their players to do. So that kind of like changed what I view the training, but like still need to like go back to like when we go back to the gym, like getting athletes stronger I'm gonna say it's like about the same, not really the same, but and others was like trying to fit in with like different teams.
I
Yeah,
got you. So you were trying to basically kind of, you knew everyone needed to get stronger, but then also trying to slightly give them that little bit of specialization based on their sport or how their coach determined that they were going to play.
yeah.
Okay.
So uh I'm gonna jump in the next question, okay?
Yeah, go ahead, man. Shoot, rattle them off.
So at the beginning of your career and have a like podcast and till now being a strength coach at Pittsburgh, there's gonna be like in our industry technologies. There's a lot of like technology like velocity based training, force plates, and there's also a lot of like new papers out. So what do
Mm-hmm.
you think is the trend for our industry, or what is the next big thing?
Ooh. Well, in terms of technology, this is the first school where we have everything. Like we have a director of sports science. He has a bunch of fellows under him. I have two that assist me with my track team and softball. I mean, we have, oh God, I think we got like 10 or 12 gym wears behind me.
Oh,
We have a Hawkins force plate. We have Norboard. We have the two other things that the Norboard company makes that looks at adductors and grip strength. We have, oh God, what else? We have timing gates, contact. Like we have a lot of technology. Like I said, I've been to most of the schools I was at. The most technology we had was a wellness questionnaire that you made up and you implemented. Um, Bridgewater, we did have the two VBT devices, so you could play around with it. But again, it was two. So like I was not running around rack to rack like my assistant wouldn't do it. Like I had one thrower who was kind of high level. So we did some VBT with him. What's the trend? I think the trend really is going to be like full on sports scientists integrated with the strength and conditioning staff. And I think that's something that here at Pitt, we're really doing a good job at, even though it's a very young, I think our director of sports science just got hired this summer. But already, like the amount of fellows were coming in, partnerships with different companies. Like we're doing a lot with Catapult. I think that's going to be the next thing where it's not going to be like just your Alabamas, your LSUs, all those big Power Five, SEC, ACC, Big Ten schools. I think it's going to trickle down to the fact that you'll either have a director of sports science or you'll have a strength and conditioning coach that is very well versed in the sports science realm who can kind of play those dual roles. In terms of technology, I don't know if I see a trend. I think if I had to say what I think the two most valuable pieces of technology are is the force plate and the VBT in terms of tracking. I mean, you can track wellness on not wellness, but you can track fatigue on the force plate. You can look at um, rate of force development. We use Hawkins and like the list of data points it lists out for me. Like when I first got here, I was overwhelmed. Like, what am I going to do with all this information? But again, you learn at it, you chip at it, like chip away at it, and just find what's valuable for you. And then I think VBT in terms of athletes, and I'm going to sound like an old man who's saying they're not like from my generation. The kids are soft, but like they just have so much going on between classes, school, the world we live in right now. I mean, going from lockdowns, being in a global pandemic, apparently America's in a recession. Like there's so many things that go on that just add to that stress bubble. I think with the VBT, instead of saying, hey, you're going to hit 2x3 at 80% of what we tested 2 months ago, you can just give them that speed and it might be 10 pounds heavier, 15 pounds later. Like it really lets you auto regulate for the capabilities of your athlete that day and chase the stimulus you still want. So I would say those are probably the two biggest things that you'll see more of, because even force plates, I can't think. I know there's Hawkins, I know there's Sparta systems. Like I don't think there's a lot. I think as more companies get into the space, there's more demand, prices come down, more schools will be able to afford them. And I think the same thing with like VBT devices. Like I know in the last 4 years, because my first year at A&T, I was looking into maybe buying a couple VBT devices, and all that was around was Tendos, and they were like $1,500, and then gym wears, which I think are close to $3,000. And now there's so many companies that are in the couple $100 range that if you had a say $2,000 budget, you could outfit a facility. So I think those are going to be the two big trends that really keep growing as demand for them and more people come into the market space to find ways to make them cheaper, that more places, schools, private places can use them.
Great. So I want to ask this personally. So what's the future of like your career, and what's the goal for yourself?
Oh, you're putting me on the spot with this one right now. Yeah, you're putting me on the spot with this one. So I remember when I got hired at A&T, at the time, the director asked me, like, what's your 5-year plan? And I was like, I would love to be a director and own my own, not own, but like run my own college program. I've already done that twice. One as an interim director and one as an actual director. So I've kind of done that. Goals, I wanna, it's gonna sound cheesy, but I want to be able to work in a place that values me, that I enjoy coming into every day. I'm surrounded by people that not only are going to push me professionally, but also push me to be a good person and truly enjoy what I've done. I've worked at schools where I enjoyed it, but there wasn't an X factor. There wasn't all this. And since being here at Pitt, like it checks all the boxes. Like I have a great work-life balance. I have a great staff that I'm around that we get along with and I'm able to bounce ideas off with, but we can also crack jokes in the office together. I work with just 2 teams, so I can start to really specialize in the event groups. I work track, so like we have a throwers program, we have a short sprints program, we have a sprints and hurdlers program. I have my cross country program. We have the hurdlers are on something different, the jumpers are on something different. I've had track everywhere I've been since I got a full-time job. It's the first time that I've been able to really specialize event group versus just sprints, jumps, hurdlers are all lumped together. The throwers are by themselves and cross countries together. And we ran a very basic 3 program for that. Yeah, goals. All right, here's one of my big goals. And I'm going on a rant right now off topic. I've always wanted to get my PhD. And I think I would love to eventually walk away from coaching, because let's face it, I'll be honest, they're long hours. Even here, like I got in today at 5:05 this morning by my own choice, and it's almost 7 o'clock here. So I've had a long day at work. I haven't done a lot. I mean, I'm not gonna say I haven't done a lot. Stephanie, don't fire me. I've I've coached my teams, but like I've had a lot of downtime. I was able to read. I was able to do this and that. I don't even know where I was going off my rambling thought with that one, but I think going back to like getting my PhD and being a professor, like I said, I love teaching, and I just happen to do it in the weight room. I think being a professor would be a cool transition to where your work life balance is probably a little bit better, time commitment's a little bit better. You kind of work more in normal, like 9 to 5 type job, but not having to be in like an office setting.
So PhD and professor for sports science, right?
Sports science and exercise science, like teach a intro to exercise phys and intro to strength and conditioning. Like I went to Pittsburgh State University and I had a really good experience in my exercise science department. And it wasn't the curriculum. There was multiple professors that just they made learning fun. They made learning enjoyable. But also now being in the profession, I see the disconnect of being a professor versus being a practitioner. And then there's that little bit of a gap that what the textbooks teach and what really happens in the weight room is not the same.
Cool, man. I love these answers.
I try to be. I try to give you the truth if I can through it. But yeah, that's probably one of my big goals is getting my PhD and being a professor.
I love that. I love that. I love all the answer you gave me today. I really love that.
I appreciate it.
So,
what's one of your big goals besides coming to the States and being I don't know if you want to come to the States, but being a strength and conditioning coach? What's something big for you want to do?
for me, for now, it's like getting a master's degree in the state and trying to land a job in the like pro sports.
Okay.
And I know it's gonna be difficult, but yeah, my goal is like probably doing that for like 3 or 6 years and try to bring all these knowledge and experience back to like Taiwan or Asia to help
Okay.
those other coaches grow.
That's awesome, man. What pro sports do you have one like is there a certain sport you'd want to work with or just kind of being in that pro setting?
Um, I'm gonna say like NBA or like NFL, these two,
Okay.
but it's
Okay.
it's gonna be hard.
Absolutely. Absolutely, man. But I think pro sports in general is just hard. Like the amount of traveling you have to do. Like you got guys who want to train, don't want to train. I've heard stories of some people will come in the beginning of the season and give you a check for all their fines and like, hey, you won't see me. Here's 40,000. You're like, oh, okay, have a great season. So
Yeah, get that. So, if there's like people or like coaches are interested in what we're talking about today, where can they reach out to? And please let them know like the name of your podcast, where to like find the podcast and your online programming.
yeah, so online programming, that was something I started during COVID and it's hasn't been up ever. So that's just a fake thing in my Instagram bio. I actually have to look up actually my Instagram. So Instagram handle is at Devin underscore SNC underscore coach. I guess feel free to follow me, DM me. I answer pretty much everyone as long as it doesn't seem super fishy and they're going to give me a virus on my phone. You can go to Pitt Athletics and go to staff directory. My email's on there. I think it's dyoung at athletics.pitt.edu. You can shoot me an email. I respond, so feel free. The podcast is Mastermind Strength and Conditioning Podcast. You can find it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google. There might be 3 or 4 other directories I have it on that I don't even remember, but there's about 34 episodes. Yeah, hopefully more to come. Hopefully I can get back into recording them and getting some coaches on and kind of keeping that dialogue going of more so than X's and O's, but really kind of like deep roots of strength and conditioning. Where's it going? What are the problems? What have people done to fix those problems? And how do we make it better for the next generation? I've always kind of had a mindset of, again, this is me living in the States, but my great grandparents didn't come over on a boat, live in a 1-bedroom apartment with 4 other families. So then I could do the same thing. Everyone's trying to make it better, easier for the next generation. And I kind of want to do that for that next generation of coaches.
Cool. Appreciate it.
Thank you, man. Thank you for having me on, man. It was fun. It's giving me the itch to do mine again. I haven't been on one in a while. So thank you.